Thanks very much, Director. The CBO, about 2 months ago, released new estimates that project that an extension of the 2017 Trump tax cuts would add $4.6 trillion to the debt over 10 years. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And does CBO believe that the original 2017 Trump tax cuts paid for themselves? And does any CBO data support that extension of these tax cuts would pay for themselves?
No, there was a effect of the tax cuts on the economy and back to revenues, but by far it did not pay for itself, and the same would apply for the extension of the 2017 Act.
CBO's long-term budget projections back in 2012 were the last time that CBO showed debt declining as a share of GDP. Since then, Congress has cut taxes numerous times, including extending most of the Bush tax cuts and then piling on the 2017 Trump tax cuts. Is it a fact, Director Swagel, that projected primary spending, that is federal non-interest spending, is now lower than it was projected to be in 2012?
That's correct. And the interest payments have gone up, but as you said, the non-interest payments have gone down.
So let me just, to put this into context, let's take a look at this graphic here, which shows from 1994 to 2054 how revenues and spending have worked. Social Security has gone up, and is that consistent with an aging population?
That's right. That results from the aging population.
And healthcare spending has gone up even more. Does that also relate to an aging population?
Right. That's both the aging population and rapid growth in health costs.
So other mandatory spending had a huge surge right here. Can you explain what that was? Was that COVID?
That's COVID, and the spending because of the the Senate rules, the spending in the reconciliation bill. I'm sorry, the COVID spending and then the 2021 reconciliation spending was all mandatory.
Yes. And then here's defense discretionary spending. And then this is non-defense discretionary spending, which, as you can see, has been fairly constant over all of those years. This is the place where our Republican friends want to focus all of their attention related to debt and deficits. But I think, as we can see, even if you zeroed that out, we still wouldn't get out of our problems, correct?
No, that's correct. That even if discretionary spending was entirely eliminated, that wouldn't take the deficit to zero.
Great. And then, as has been pointed out, interest costs are what are going up. That's the biggest number. And is it true that tax cuts have an effect on the interest obligations of the country?
That's right. The rising interest payments, as you noted, reflect both higher interest rates and also more debt. And the tax cuts lead to less
More
revenue, which mean more debt.
Yep. So what I've added here, this is what our actual revenue has looked like. If the Bush tax cuts had not been extended back in 2012, here's what our revenue would look like. We'd be darn close to operating in an effective way. So you can ascribe an enormous amount of our problem to the extension of the Bush tax cuts, according to, are these numbers correct? Can you vouch for the extension of the Bush tax cuts having that much of an effect on revenues?
I'd have to look at it. I haven't, from this distance, I can't see it.
Okay.
But certainly the 2012 extension of the 2001 and 2003 tax acts had an effect on revenues, as you said.
A pretty massive effect on debt and on deficits because of lost revenues, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Yep. And then one other one I wanted to show you. If you look at what's been added to the national debt, this is Trump time. 3.6 trillion was added, and that was COVID relief, so we can understand that was a little bit of an emergency. But 4.8 trillion was non-COVID added to the debt. By contrast, there's still 2.1 trillion left under Biden, but 2.2 trillion in non-COVID. So does the math add up that under Biden, the addition to the debt is less than half than under Trump?
I mean, I'd have to look at the numbers, but as you said, the the dollars of debt and the debt ratio went way up, especially during the pandemic, but even before that, the debt ratio went up.
Senator Grassley.